You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to give you the inspiration you need to get started in the outdoors or keep moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hi friends, welcome again to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This show, man, is going to be so packed full of information and amazing things. I have guest Annie Crawley with us. And Annie is a scuba diver who's been scuba diving for about 35 years. She's made a life out of this. She was actually inducted into the Women Divers Hall of Fame back in 2010. And she is not only an inspirational speaker, she also does environmental speaker series. And her life's passion is connecting people with water and what the oceans do for us, and helping out with all the environmental impacts that we're having on the oceans as well. She recently created a documentary about Malpelo, which is a Colombian island in the Pacific, and the documentary is called Island of the Shark, Gardens of Malpelo. There's so much we're going to dive into. We won't be able to cover it all, but Annie, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And I know that longtime listeners know this about me. I love scuba diving. I've not done a huge amount of it like you have, but I started scuba diving about the same time you did, probably. Maybe even a little bit before. But I've been landlocked for a very long time because I also love the mountains, and my heart is torn because I would love to have had the experiences that people like you have on the oceans. It's just amazing. But let's just rewind to that question. How did you get into this in the first place 35 years ago?
Well, something you might not know about me, but I also grew up landlocked. I was born and raised in Chicago. And so I didn't see the ocean until after college. And I grew up, with a small swimming pool in the backyard in inner city Chicago. But I grew up in a neighborhood called Portage Park, and we had an Olympic-size swimming pool and a diving pool that was created in I think in the 70s as an Olympic trial area. So the Park District in Chicago was really huge, and so I was on swim team for pretty much all of my young years in life. So I've always been in love with water. It's been my happy place since whatever I can remember. And it's, a lot of people, because drowning is one of the biggest causes for kids under 4 for early death, people teach their kids how to swim so that they don't drown, not necessarily how they can swim so that they can explore the other 70% of our world. And
fear-based.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Fear-based. No. And so I'm really hoping to change that perspective with water, because as soon as I learned to scuba dive, it was a different world for me. Like, I had no idea that I could, one, become a scuba diver. But the second part of it was that it was like better than cartoons. And the cartoons were like the best thing as a kid growing up. And so like when I found the ocean and all the animals within, I was like, everybody needs to know about how cool the ocean is and the feeling that you have when you're underwater.
Well, I agree with you. And just for fun, how do you address the fear that people often have of water? I knew people that were raised in a family where water was literally terrifying. I knew people growing up that couldn't even splash water on their faces.
Yeah, I think that starts at a young age. And I've created programs around like how not to instill fear into your children around water. And we have to, we are born from water. We are in water for the first 10 months of our life. And then it's really about how to introduce kids to water and to invite them into this world. But there is a lot of parental control as a scuba instructor. So I learned to scuba dive. Do you want to hear the story of how I learned to scuba dive?
I want to hear the story. Absolutely.
So I went to University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So I went to a Big Ten university and I was a journalism major. And when I graduated, I saved my money for a year because I knew I wanted to do potentially travel journalism. And so in essence, I saved money and I decided I was going to take a gap year. And I ended up traveling to Australia. I chose Australia because like my grandmother had been there. My sister was an exchange student there. They spoke English, so it felt very safe and exciting to go to Australia. So I strapped on a backpack and I started my journey. And one of the places I ended up, it was in Perth, Australia. So that's on the, that's known as Western Australia. I was walking down the street and I saw a sign that said, learn to scuba dive. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've always been a swimmer. I never thought I could do it. But this started my passion for following the signs of life. And so I walked in the door, I signed up for my class, and the next thing I knew, I was on my journey to becoming a scuba diver. And there's first classroom, as you might remember from your first try. And then when I hit the pool, it was like everything stopped. I looked at my instructor and I thought, I could do your job. I could travel the world and become a scuba instructor, because there was something about when you wear a mask, it covers your nose. And there was something about the visual of seeing bubbles for the first time. And when you breathe, you're taught to breathe slowly. And there was something that hit me, that it was this meditation, and everything on land disappeared. And from the moment I was underwater, I felt this deep connection to water in a way that I never got from being on the surface and being a swimmer. So literally from the first moments that I spent underwater, it changed my life entirely.
I love that. I want to just highlight a couple things there because I think it's important for people to recognize. If you look back through the way that humans have expressed their interactions with water, historically, all the way back to mythology, like you have to cross a river when you die. Or, water represents death because we can't see what's below the surface. To a lot of people, it's something that's on the other side. It's the great unknown. It's mysterious. It's fearful. And when we swim, especially if we're in murky water a little bit, we can't see what's around us. A lot of people are like, what's down there? What's down there? What's down there? But when you put the mask on and you see what's down there and you can breathe underwater and the mystery starts to resolve, I'm with you. I was just immediately enchanted. And it doesn't feel scary anymore. It feels exciting and mysterious.
Yeah. And so it helps if you have a healthy level of water experience. So if you can swim, it's a lot easier to scuba dive. If you have water competency, it's a lot easier to learn to scuba dive. I would say that, it is ingrained in us from even our history. I remember when I did my master's at University of Washington in communications, they have a wonderful library system. And I was looking at old maps, and these old historical maps have sea monsters all over it because we were so like ocean sciences is only a couple of 100 years old. We did not know what lived underwater. And so we made up a lot of stories, as people do, about what lives under the sea. So historically, we are a society, humans, of not being exactly water people. So I feel like there's this huge opportunity to help educate and entertain people about what happens underwater.
I think that's very, very true. I mean, the part that's crazy to me, I've heard this said several times, we know more about the moon than we know about the bottom of the oceans.
Yeah, we know more about outer space. So, and it's really interesting, how we're talking about those maps. Most world maps make land look so big. It looks like we're 70% land, but we're 70% ocean. I love the view from outer space looking back at Earth, because we shouldn't be called planet Earth, we should be called planet Ocean. When we're looking at solar systems beyond us, what are we looking for? We're looking for frozen water. We're looking for
Yeah.
life based in water, because scientists believe that life started in the ocean and that then we came to land.
Well, and our bodies are made mostly of water, even salt water for that matter. And when
Same
you
chemistry.
when you get in the water, it's like neutral. All the effects of gravity subside, and you feel like, oh, it's almost, if you allow yourself to open your mind a little bit, it's like, oh, I'm back where I belong. Even though we're land creatures, right? Yeah. But you can feel that when you go in the water, it can really feel like a home.
Yeah, there's something to blue mind therapy. So we feel better now. It's scientifically proven through our brains. So it's blue mind science that people feel better when you are near a waterfall, near an ocean shore, yes, near a lake. We feel better when we are in the ocean, and then I feel best when I'm submerged underwater. So there is something to it that is now proven through science within the last 10 to 12 years. So we're really lucky. I'm actually working on a book. I don't think I told you about this yet because it's still in its earlier stages. It's probably 1 to 2 years out, but it's everything I learned from the sea. And nice. It goes into, like, there's one thing that this cycle, you mentioned the moon, so this is what triggered this. The gravitational pull of between the sun, the earth, and the moon is there's tides in life. So right. How I said, one of the things that I learned from scuba diving was following the signs. One of the other things that I learned is every day, every 6 hours, there's a low tide and a high tide. And there's a low and a high. And in my life, what I had to learn was, where are the lows in my life? Where are the highs? And every day these change. So if you're having, we all have them. If you're having a bad moment in your day, knowing that in 6 hours, you're going to feel a lot different, it really helps get me through whatever lows I have, because I know a high is right around the corner.
I love that. I've said it sort of a different way in the past, but it's something like, if you feel a negative emotion, we don't have to freak out. We can say, oh, well, I'm happy sometimes, and sometimes I feel like this, and that's okay, because this will pass too. There's an ebb and a flow to life, and just acknowledging what you feel, not trying to change it, but just saying, oh, I feel this way right now. Okay, well, that'll change. It's so empowering. I love what you said about that, just like the tides.
Yeah, just like the tides and the ebb and flow. Hint, hint, click, click.
Right.
The tides of life. It's the tides of life. Yeah, and a lot of people, when you're landlocked, you might not realize that. And so, up here in the Pacific Northwest, where I live now, the tides, we have king tides, and the tide will go out 12 feet. Right. Wow. In our king tide period, where when you're closer to the equator, so I know a lot of people go to Mexico or the Caribbean or even the South Pacific, the closer you are to the equator, the less the water movement is. So sometimes people don't even notice that it's when it's only going out 1 to 3 feet. But the farther away you get from the equator, the bigger the tides. And so it's really apparent that these low lows can be, -12, and then a high tide can be a +1 or a +2. So where I live, it's even hit farther, closer to home, I guess, for me, how important these cycles are in our lives to recognize.
I think people realize some interactions with nature naturally. Like if it's a sunny day, they step out into the sunshine and are like, oh, there's the sun. They recognize it. It's having an impact. And on rainy days, sometimes people say, well, I just want to cuddle up somewhere and read a book, or, and that's just the simplest explanation. But then when you realize that our lives also ebb and flow with the natural cycles of the planet, not just the seasons, not just the weeks, the day and the night, but also the pull of the sun and the moon, the tidal cycles, and we're all a part of this. We're just largely unaware. How did it change you to realize that, I guess, to become aware of it and say, oh, well, this applies to the way I feel in my life?
Yeah, I think I grew up in inner city Chicago, and I had a pretty hard life my first 15 years, first 20 years, and I think that it just naturally came to me that when I found the ocean, I found home. And, I look back and I think about how important that moment was for me, that first time underwater, and then the first time I learned how beautiful the ocean was. I saw kelp forests and I heard sea lions barking, and I was like, what's this? Because even though I grew up in uh, going camping and in our wonderful national park system, that I always felt connected to nature and trees. I had a tree climbing club when I was a kid, right? Like it was.
That's great. I love it.
I loved. I loved. So there was always something about nature that I felt great about. But when I found scuba diving, it really did have this profound impact on me. And it comes down to this, everything becomes silent. The only thing you hear is the bubbles. And, the ocean does have noises, and we're learning more about these noises now. Like the fish feeding attracts different animals to pass through a coral reef. So we are learning about sounds of reef now, but for the most part, compared to what our everyday life is, including those voices that live within our heads, all of those became silent for me when I went underwater. And I knew that I wanted to explore our world because I was very cultured in Chicago as well. We have the Art Institute, we have the Field Museum of Natural History, we have many museums, and of course, Lake Michigan. So I understood that side of the world, but I didn't understand our ocean. And so by learning to scuba dive and then becoming a dive master and then an instructor within the first year and a half of me learning how to dive, because as I traveled, as I took my gap year, I decided I was going to travel around the world through scuba diving. And
Nice.
so I sold my one-way ticket home and bought a one-way ticket to Bali, Indonesia. And I was actually away from home for 4 years exploring our world and exploring our world underwater. So I ended up learning to sail and learning to scuba dive all within the first weeks of being away from home. And once I found that, and once I found living on boats, I was like, this is a freedom I never experienced before. And so for me, the ocean also became freedom, and everything was new. And so I had this silence underwater, but then at the same time, I had to learn charts and I had to learn how to read the water. And it was just a new education system for me right after I graduated college that I just became fully immersed within.
I really like that. I was torn, as I said earlier, between the water life and the mountain life. And I ended up in the mountains, which I love. I absolutely love. But we take vacations to the beaches and vacations to the water places, and I love that too. But I am fascinated how you were just all in. It's like, oh, this is it for me. Let's go.
Yeah,
That's great.
I'm gonna say this one thing too is that how you go to vacation to the beaches, I go on vacation to the mountains because I love the mountains as well. Like
There you go.
I do. I love skiing. My cousins all grew up in Utah. I shouldn't say all my cousins. My aunt and uncle were headed out to Colorado to live, and their car broke down in Utah, so they stayed in Utah. They stayed in Utah, and so I grew up. I knew about the mountains, and I grew up visiting them. And so I was able to see the mountains at a very young age as well. And so I fell in love with mountains, and many of those mountains were, and much of Colorado also, there used to be seas there, right? Like, so maybe you are more of an ancient water lover and you're connected to all of the history of all of the inland seas. I was really surprised to learn, I did some research for one of the projects I worked on in Chicago, and that whole region in the Midwest used to be an inland sea as well.
Right.
One of the things that I learned, Morton salt, so how we have salt, there's a huge salt mine underneath Lake Michigan that is from an ancient sea. And so it's amazing how much salt water touches us all, even though we don't know it, because it's in our history.
Absolutely. I grew up in northeastern Oklahoma, and I spent, I don't know how much of my childhood looking for fossils, and I was always looking at sea creatures. Crinoids, blastoids, different types of mollusks, bivalves. I mean, all these sorts. They're all underwater creatures. I wasn't finding dinosaur bones. I was finding what was in the ocean. Sometimes I would even find fossilized fish bones, which was, just so amazing. But even here where I live now, we're in Gunnison, Colorado, 7,700 feet. We have coal that was deposits from, inland water. And we have Fossil Ridge, which is almost 13,000 feet tall. It's in 12,000 feet tall. And then when you climb to the top of this mountainous ridge, you see the sea creatures and the rocks. It's just fascinating to me, that the history of our planet is the history of the oceans. It's the history of the water, for sure. You said it.
Yeah, so that's how I like it. And so when you ask me, like, how did I find that path in water? I would say that one of the most important things that I learned when I was younger was to stay out of debt. When I said I had hardship growing up, my dad died when I was 8 months old. So I lost my father. I lost my father. And then I grew up kind of searching for like who I was. And I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in. Even though I fit in, it was like this internal strife. And so when I found this path, and I started following these signs in life, it's like one thing led to another that led to another. And my life just kind of unfolded. But I also took calculated risks. So I knew like I was safe. I felt safe because I grew up in inner city Chicago. When I was 10 years old, my mom would make us maps of how to navigate the transportation system. So I grew up on buses and the L on my own, navigating where to go. So like navigation was natural for me on land, but then learning how to do it underwater. And then, everybody knows what Bali is today. But when I lived in Bali for the first time, 30 years ago, there wasn't a high tourist population going through. And so I didn't have very many Americans at all. More Europeans came or Australians came just because of the location and the plane transportation and how hard it was to get. And we didn't have the internet at our fingertips. So everything was literally done through a lived experience. And so knowing how comfortable that I was on water, I started working on liveaboard boats. And I felt completely at home on the sea, and how we talk about blue mind science now and how good we feel in nature and in the water. There is something about how the ocean just held me. It just held me in my heart. It held me in my body. And I knew that that was the path for me. And I think that once you connect to nature on a deep, profound level, whether you're immersing yourself in it, there is something that changes within your body. And you have to seek that out. And I was at a period in my life that I didn't have responsibility. I was brought up to be debt free and to not incur debt. And so during this time period, I had saved money before I left. And then once I discovered the sport of scuba diving and sailing, I started working on boats. So I never drained my finances completely because I always wanted to work towards the next adventure.
Hey, a brief coming of age story. When I was 17, my mom and dad and my sister and I decided to do an extended family road trip. We made it as far south as Carlsbad, as far west as Sequoia National Park and Yosemite National Parks. We made it as far north as Glacier National Park. But there, I split off from the family. They went home, and I went to Seattle. I met my friend Jason. He and I traveled all the way across Canada, down the eastern seaboard in a 1968 Volkswagen, and we camped in a tent the whole way across the North American continent. I came back changed. In many ways, I left home a boy and returned home a man. It was life-impacting. We didn't fly over the North American continent. We traveled through it. If you would like to connect the dots of this continent, then today's sponsor is here to help. I'm talking about Outdoorsy, of course. Outdoorsy has thousands of RVs and campers nationwide. They're available right in your neighborhood, and you can drive it yourself, you can tow it, you can actually have it delivered and fully set up your destination if you want to. They have comprehensive insurance, 24/7 customer service, roadside assistance, so you have built-in peace of mind. It's a great value. It's often less expensive than hotels, and it allows for a really fun family and group approach to travel. It's available to renters 21 years and older. So get your RV in 3 simple steps. You search through the inventory and choose one that's right for your trip and your group size. Book it with confidence and hit the road. It's that easy. This summer is massive. Think about this. The big international soccer tournament coming to North America. America's 250th anniversary with celebrations across the country. The 100th anniversary of Route 66. It's one of the most iconic road trip routes ever, and I have traveled much of that. It's really cool. An RV isn't just transportation, it's how you can stay closer to the action. Think for a moment about family reunions in RVs. How about traveling with parents or grandkids, friends, or even pets? How about getting closer to the trailhead or the river or the beach than the hotel allows? And how fun would it be to have an RV for music festival weekends? And you can save money by using the code ASP when you book your RV. Right now, my listeners can have all the service fees removed from their booking in 2026 with the code ASP at outdoorsy.com. That's OUTDOORSY.com, and use the code ASP at checkout to remove those service fees. Why not take the time to actually see this amazing nation we live in and let Outdoorsy.com make it easier for you? Hey friends, let's talk about chewing gum for a moment. Nathan and Sons asked that I run this ad for them, and my first thought was, if this isn't really healthy, good stuff, I don't want to do it. I'd had their gum already, and I found it kind of unique and fresh, but I wanted to make sure that it was a product that I could stand behind. So I looked into it, I looked at all their ingredients, I looked at the product, and actually I'm very impressed. It's quickly apparent that this isn't regular gum. This is remineralizing gum. That's a mouthful. You know, you brush your teeth in the morning and at night, but after lunch there's this gap where most of us do nothing for our teeth. Underbrush is made for that moment. You chew it for 5 or 10 minutes, then spit it out and move on. Or, of course, you can keep chewing it. I mean, it's good gum. It's made with hydroxyapatite. It's the same mineral that your enamel is made from. And natural saps. This is a cool part, like mastic and spruce. So it has this firmer, really satisfying chew. They actually make it themselves from scratch. The company is only a few years old, and the team is literally making, packing, and shipping gum every day. So if you want a simple daily upgrade for your teeth, check out Underbrush from Nathan & Sons. And I would like to point something out. There are tourists that like to go see something. There are tourists that like to go do something. But then there are travelers who say, oh, I can make a living doing this or that or the other, at least enough so that I can stay longer and travel more. And then they find out it's actually doing the work that brings the reality of the culture, the reality of where you are, because you're functioning in it. You're not just looking at it anymore. You're a part of the goings-on, so to speak. Anyway, I think that is what
No,
you're
I
saying
love
is
it.
you found that.
Yeah, and the joy of service, the joy of
Yeah.
introducing somebody else to the world that I love so much that it becomes passion. And so I think that, when I think about it and even the signs of life, when I was in Bali and I took my first job as an instructor, I had limited funds because that was after 2 years of traveling. And I had saved about 1,000 New Zealand dollars and they were all in my wallet. And at the time, uh, I trusted the tourists on the beach watching our bags rather than trusting the cheap Louseman that I was staying in, right? The cheap backpacker place I was staying in.
Mm-hmm.
And all my money got stolen that day. And I
Oh
was going
no.
to leave Bali because I didn't exactly like it because it was like a place that everybody there thought I had money because I was a tourist and they were used to
Yeah.
that. And so they wanted to sell me watches and sarongs and everything. And I didn't want to buy anything. I wanted a job. And, and so I got my job and then my money got stolen. And then I had to stay because there was no way I was going home. Like I had to stay and work at that point. And the company that had hired me to do these Discover Scubas with some tourists that came through, they then felt obligated to hire me. So they hired me, and then I ended up staying there for 2 years. And I fell in love with Indonesia. I fell in love with the country, and I fell in love with the entire region. Scientists believe that coral reefs started in the Indo-Pacific, and
Mm.
it's in an area that I was just diving at for the last 5 weeks. It's called Raja Ampat, and it's the island there's one island, New Guinea, but it's Papua New Guinea and West Papua in Indonesia. And they
Mm-hmm.
believe that it started there and everything else spirals out. And like when we think about the importance of the ocean and coral reefs, 25% of all ocean animals rely on coral reefs or a part of the coral reef system.
Yeah, it's the
Uh,
garden.
it, it is the garden, yeah, and
Right.
it's really funny because we call it the garden, the coral gardens, but they're animals. Like they're just these wonderful cities in the sea that the coral polyps are individual, but then they have these huge coral colonies that could be seen from outer space. So I think that like diving in that region of the world to introduce me to scuba diving was also one of those signs that I followed, that I stayed with, that I connected to, because the colors underwater. I don't know. Where have you been scuba diving?
Not nearly enough places. I've done a lot of freshwater diving, various places.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's great.
I've yeah, I've been to the Caribbean and
Hmm.
did some diving in the Atlantic.
Hmm.
Key Largo, places like that. I would like to do a whole lot more,
Yeah.
but
Well, there's direct flights from Seattle to the Philippines, so that's an easy place to go. That's part of the
there you
Coral
go.
Triangle. That's right. I think that the Philippines is the closest country that people can go to from the United States, from the west coast of the United States. It's just as quick to get to the Philippines. It actually takes me longer to get to the Caribbean than it does to get to a place like the Philippines. So
Oh, really?
I'm going to
Wow.
encourage, yeah, I'm gonna encourage you to get your wings on and get yourself over because for every species that's in the Caribbean, it's like times 25 in the South Pacific. So
Oh,
everybody
wow.
out there, yeah, join me in the Coral Triangle because it's definitely one of those. I think it's one of the top 10 places to scuba dive in the world.
Oh, I'm sure, no doubt. Scuba diving created a whole lifelong venture for you. And you've done a
Yes.
lot of things with it. I mean, you don't get inducted to the Women Divers Hall of Fame because you were a tourist who liked to dive sometimes. Why were you inducted to the Hall of Fame?
So back in 2006, my first children's book and DVD came out. This is in the time of DVDs, and I produced Ocean Life A to Z with Reader's Digest Children's Division, and it was a hit. It sold over 150,000 copies. And I went on a book and author tour, and I went throughout the United States and around the world. And I was selling the ocean to kids all over the world. And
Mm,
then I created another home to DVD series that everything I did was education around the ocean. I translated into Spanish because I always felt bilingual was very important. They're all actually on YouTube now. I also have an educator series that's out that is free downloads for anybody who'd like it at a website, ouroceanandyou.com, because during the pandemic, we weren't selling DVDs anymore. So we digitized everything and we put it out there for teachers, for parents to connect people to the ocean. So back in 2010, I was recognized for all of the ocean education and entertainment that I did within the school system and within the home market for kids and families. I even have a song called the Ocean Song Sing Along. And it's what my company is based in. The name of my company is called Dive Into Your Imagination. And that's because I believe imagination is that of the visionary, that it's not child's play, but that we all need our imaginations. And I think we didn't even touch upon that, but something else the ocean gave me was this great imagination, because it's so vast and so big, and there's so many different animals. Like, there's over 24,000 different species of fish. It's incredible, the diversity of what is in our water system, including sharks and rays. Like, there's over 500 different species of sharks and over 1,200 different species of rays in our world ocean. And, we only know about, a lot of times, just shark, right? We just know that one word,
think shark.
Yeah, and that's all we think. We don't think about even the diversification that's happened in our world ocean. And, sharks have faced 5 major extinctions on our planet, and they're still swimming in our ocean. So, and we need to keep sharks swimming.
So you have so many things going on. Let's focus in on one or two so that we can do a little bit more of a deep dive. I want to talk about Malpelo.
Yeah, one of my favorite places. So Malpelo Island is an island about 300 miles off the coast of Colombia in a region of the world called the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor. So that composes 4 different countries. So many people, and probably your listeners, would know Galapagos. Sure. I lived and worked in Galapagos, so we didn't get there on my coral reef journey, but that was one of the second places I went after spending time in the Coral Triangle. I ended up working in Galapagos for a few months as well. And Galapagos is an amazing, amazing place. Charles Darwin made it famous, but one of the reasons why is not a lot of people know about Malpelo is because it comes up from the underwater world from 4,000 meters deep, and it extends, and it's only about a kilometer long. And so it's a very small island sanctuary in the Pacific Ocean, where more people might have heard of Galapagos and Cocos. But what it is it's a migratory route that sharks follow to get clean. So Galapagos, Cocos, Malpelo, these are all volcanic islands in the middle off of the coasts of Ecuador, Colombia, and Costa Rica. So that region, including Panama and an area called Cueva, that is known as the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor. So I had an opportunity to go to Colombia, and it's an area I had always wanted to explore. And I first went as a tourist, and I went on a boat called the Ferox, and it's named after the Ferox shark. That is a deep water shark that is sometimes seen in Colombia. So I first went as a tourist, and only one boat is allowed to stay at the island because of the moorings, and because it's 4,000 meters deep. The National Park System of Colombia has sanctioned only one boat at a time. So that's less than 500 tourists a year.
There's nothing to anchor to, is what you're saying.
Yes, you can't. Yes, you can't go there and anchor anywhere. And so there's moorings set up because it's in the middle of the ocean. There's different currents that collide from all different regions. And the island hosts, I don't know if we have birders, but I know I'm a birder. I think anybody who likes adventure and sports and travels knows how important birds are in our world.
Oh, yeah.
That it has the largest population of Nazca booby birds on the island, but the only way to get to the island, and it's shown in the documentary, and I have different videos also on my YouTube channel, that I actually got to go and stay on the island for a few nights with the Navy. And so, like, Malpelo has such a little piece of my heart. I went as a tourist. There was this other boat there that was called the Silky, and it's a catamaran, and it's owned by an NGO called Biodiversity Conservation Colombia, and they are moored there year round to protect this national park and UNESCO World Heritage Site from illegal fishers that want to come and hunt the sharks. And so I went as a tourist and I found out about this organization that is protecting their national park from illegal fishers. It was a story that had to be told.
And so you made a documentary.
So I was invited. So the captain of the Ferox, his name is Tony. Captain Tony met my personality, and he was like, "You've got to meet Erica Lopez." And so he introduced us. And we met via Zoom. And it was in 2021, and she invited me back to stay on her ship. And I stayed for 2.5 months on her ship, 3 months in Colombia, getting to know her. And the first time back after I was a tourist, I went and stayed on her boat for 3 months out at Malpelo. So in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, I was on this boat with a group of Colombian men. So Erica didn't come because she does ops from land usually. She was only with me for about 8 to 10 days on this boat, and I was there with her crew the entire time. And it was so exciting, so exciting.
I just want to address, it's not quite an elephant in the room, but maybe it should be. People think of Colombia, and all we hear from the media is what Colombia was during drug wars. Mm-hmm. People have no clue about so many places around the world because they've not met the people. They've not seen the country. They've not realized that, there are bad parts of inner cities in the U.S. and there are peaceful places in the U.S. And we stereotype, we categorize, and we're really selling ourselves short. What you're talking about is a life experience that so few people get to have. But as soon as you say Colombia, some sort of a red flag probably pops up for a lot of listeners. It just doesn't make much sense, right?
Yeah. Thanks for addressing the elephant in the room per se. I think that I have learned to steer away from the drugs of Colombia because in one of my first talks, when I was first figuring out the story of what was going on, was I said, this is how everybody thinks of Colombia. Colombia thinks about, drugs, coffee, and that's about it. Drugs and coffee. These are the two things that Colombia is known for. Yeah. And here I then introduced everybody to Malpelo. And Malpelo is known as the island of the shark. And this group, Biodiversity Conservation Colombia, together with Erica Lopez leading it and Jacob Griffiths, who's the co-founder with Erica, they've done these extraordinary things. And they've done it in spite of all the negative that we ever hear about. We still have, warnings to go to certain countries throughout the region, because of violence and drugs and war and different things like that. I have found that, even living in an area of Indonesian, I had uncles that would write to me that would be like, "You're crazy, you're nuts." And I never felt anything except peace living side by side in all of the different regions that I've been to. And so when I went to Colombia for the first time, when you fly to Mexico, it's a really bad deal that we get when we go into Cabo now as a photographer and filmmaker or as a tourist. the government will stop you if you have more than 3 phones and three cameras, and GoPros count as cameras, and they tax you on it as they go in. So when I was flying into Colombia, I was a little bit worried because I was afraid, of all of the Army people that I always saw. And I have lights and different kinds of things that I travel with as
gear,
somebody
the
who
tools
has
of the trade.
When you have to be sound and audio and filming, and I had to film on land and underwater. And then I kept seeing these guards and I was like, oh, they're going to take my stuff. Oh, they're going to. And Erica said, Annie, they don't care about any of that. They just want to make sure you're not transporting drugs. And so there's a healthy relationship that everybody knows that this could be an issue. But when I led with that as one of the first lines, I had a Colombian in the audience that I did not know about. And he came up to me after my talk and he said, Annie, we have worked really hard in the tourism world to not have that be the number one focus that we share with people. But we have all of these other assets to our country. And did you feel safe there? Did you come across this? And of course, the answer was no, 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 no. And so I really shifted how I talked about Colombia. But this is also my experience in inner city Chicago that really helped me know how to be safe in a city and how to steer clear of things like I don't go out at night without people in certain areas of the world. Like as an adventure traveler, you have to be super smart. As an explorer and somebody you have to be smart about the things you do. Otherwise, you need to be a tourist and go to those hotels that are safe that you're in. So I think that when you pointed that out about the difference between a traveler, an explorer, and an adventurer, there is a big difference. But for me, I'm not going to say that Colombia doesn't have drugs because we know it does. Actually, the story of how I cut my first 6-minute piece together about Erica, she called me after I was there the first time. And she's like, Annie, I have this really important meeting in Bogota, which is one of the heads in where a lot of business takes place in Colombia. And it's I always fly in and out of Cali, but Bogota is one of the other places that you would fly in and out of because it's one of the international destinations. So she had a really important meeting and she's like, Annie, I don't know who's going to be there, but I know my national parks is, but she's like, there's going to be US people there too. So I cut her a 6-minute piece about the work that she's doing because she's been operating in the silo, and the story that I bring to life about her and her work is something many people don't know on an international level. And what happened was I cut this piece. Media really is important, right? Podcasts are important, videos are important, stories are important. So I cut her this piece that nobody has seen, just her in this group in the room. And she got a standing ovation of it. And what we found out afterwards was the US Navy was there, the US Coast Guard was there, our diplomats were there because she has a catamaran that's always in this region. And they have international system, it's known as the EYES system, that anybody who has it turned on, anybody can see them in the world. So you can see when the Silky Catamaran is in place. And the U.S. Coast Guard, because they lend help to Colombia in the war against drugs, that they wanted to know what this boat was and to make sure that she was doing what she said she was doing. And so by having this 6-minute piece cut for her, it was extraordinary that her countryman found out what she did, and the heads in the US that are working in Colombia also know now the work that she's doing.
Ah, what a win. I call those breakthrough moments, when the right people find the right information, and what a difference it makes. So the documentary itself, where can people find it and what's it about?
So we put it, it's now on YouTube. So you could go to my YouTube channel and it's the lead video on my YouTube channel. So we put it through the film festival circuit and we ended up releasing it last year in conjunction in October of 2025, in conjunction with the 30th anniversary of Malpelo Flora and Fauna Sanctuary. So it's a Columbia National Park. I was going on a trip to Columbia, so I was at Malpelo Island. Erica was presenting it to the national parks, and it was the 30th anniversary, so we released it online for that reason. It's been in theaters, but we put it online so more people can share it. We also developed a website called islandoftheshark.com. There's a link to that as well as on my YouTube channel. So what is the film about? We talked about like coral reefs and how important they are in the world. Well, our shark population and media is very important in this. You know, a lot of people watch Shark Week. A lot of people watch films in the media. I would say that or maybe I should throw the question back to you. What is the biggest shark film that we all know that just celebrated its 50th year last summer?
Jaws.
Yes. And if we
Steven
go
Spielberg.
dun, right?
It terrified everybody, and it was wrong, but still.
Yeah, you know, Wendy Benchley actually is very active in our community, in the ocean community, into writing. Like Peter Benchley wishes he never wrote that book because of what happened to sharks after that. So This is a 52nd anniversary for the book Jaws, 51st anniversary this summer for the movie Jaws. Now, a lot of people know that, but what we don't know are how important sharks are swimming in our ocean. And in the last 50 years, people have killed 70% of oceanic sharks and rays. So we have fished 70% of sharks and rays out of our ocean.
That's crazy.
In the same, it's insanity. And one of the biggest problems our ocean faces right now is overfishing. So, you know, the fishing industry has done a very, very good job of selling how healthy fish is. But fish and sharks, these are wild animals. And if you think about, like, I guess that the easiest way to explain this to all the listeners out there is if you think about Africa and how few lions we have left, how few tigers we have left, how few elephants we have left, right? Those are wild animals like chimpanzees and great apes. Those all got hunted, but we could see those on land. Yeah. Underwater, we can't see what is going on in all of these places all around the world in relation to these sharks and rays. And so people, and I like to put a people view on this, people have hunted more than 70% of sharks and rays. And so many scientists are worried that we've hunted so many that if we don't stop now, 1/3 of sharks and rays face extinction on our planet in the next couple of decades. Like, this is something that we need to reverse and understand and respect how important these animals are in our world ocean because they balance everything. And so the film brings to light what this NGO has done around Malpelo, Colombia, because they are presence matters, right? Like, them being there deters shark fishers from coming to their island and fishing for sharks around there, because the NGO does patrols around the island every day and they chase the illegal fishers away. And so they are now there more than 90% of the year because Erica's plan worked. And so they have a catamaran that is stationed there, and the ecotourism works as their partner, as well as the Navy and the National Park System.
Oh, that's wonderful. Look what a difference one person can make when they find something that they believe is worth applying effort to, fighting for, educating people about. That's remarkable.
And so it took me a couple of years to develop the story because, you know, even though Erica and I met and we became fast friends, we had to have a level of trust, and we had to build a relationship, and I had to interview the right people and the right scientists who could tell the story together with Erica and Jacob. And so I was very blessed in the journey. It did take me over 3.5 years to develop, and within the documentary itself, it's hard to believe how much that I had to do on my own. And pretty much I hired an editor when I got home, and I was able to go through everything, and we were able to bring it across the finish line and tell the story for Erica, because really there's so many people working in silos all around the world that are trying to protect their region. And I think that there's a program that I started that's called Our Underwater Backyard here in my community, because it's not just that we don't understand what's going on in Colombia, but we often don't understand what's happening in our own backyard. And I couldn't work on an international level without also working right here in my backyard. We have a marine park here that it's like, in my city, I live in the city of Edmonds. In my city, Main Street runs right into the Puget Sound area of the Salish Sea. So all of our runoff goes straight into the sound in our water, and our population has exploded over the years. And so I like to, if you can imagine this, the work that I do, it's like lifting the ocean, lifting the shoreline so that people could get connected to what lives just below the surface of the ocean, because that just scratches it, right? But that teases, that inspires, that shows a connection, and then creating this connection with people is what I do best.
And that is Our Ocean and You?
Our Ocean and You. For our community, we have Edmonds Underwater Backyard. That's Edmonds Underwater Park. That's what we call it here.
Okay.
But we developed a program. So I teach kids and teens how to scuba dive in my community and underwater photography. So then they share stories about the ocean and their ocean and how they got connected to the sea with our community as well. And I really believe that like everybody's listening to my voice and your voice right now, but we all have voices and we need to share our stories. And it's a very important thing to bring the next generation of storytellers in. And so I work hard to create stories in our community to connect people to the ocean. With Erica and her film, she's now able to share it in schools in her region to connect the kids of Colombia to what is the real ocean and what's going on within her region as well.
Annie, I want to point something out. You're a perfect example of this. I really believe that where many, many people go wrong is we ask the question, what's the meaning of life? We should be asking the question, what gives life meaning? And the answer to that is, what do you value? What lights your light, What rings your bell? What is it that when you see it, you go, oh, wow, that happened to you when you first encountered the oceans and scuba diving? And the end result of that is you've dedicated your life to something that you find meaningful and valuable, and so few people get to do that. But anybody can. They just have to find the thing and do the thing. But on kind of that meta level, can you tell us what it feels like to say, no, I am living my life in a way that has meaning and purpose for me?
Let me take a deep breath.
That's a big one.
Inhale and exhale. Yeah, it's a big one. And I think like as I started researching and like understanding and wanting to create products and programs to connect people to the ocean, I learned a very interesting fact, and I learned this about 25 years ago, and it's every breath we take connects us to the ocean. Literally, the oxygen, like I know trees are important on land, but phytoplankton in our ocean creates more than 50%. So every breath, so I'm taking that deep breath because every breath I take connects me to that ocean. The water we drink, the food we eat, a healthy global economy connects us to, is reliant on a healthy global ocean. Like,
yeah.
a healthy global economy. Look at what's going on, right? I don't want to go political on us, but just that little waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, look at what's happening all around that because of transportation and getting goods in and out of that little area. Like
Right.
transportation, global economy, all tied to a healthy global ocean. So I'd say that the passion and purpose in my life happened because the ocean healed me. For 4 years of my life, at a very vulnerable time when I was in my 20s, I was able to submerge myself in water and sun and adventure and exploration. And that allowed the possibilities to brew for 4 years of what is possible in life. You know, so many people are afraid to take a chance and to go down a path that they get frozen in time, or they think that society drives you in a certain direction, when in reality, there are different paths we could choose every single day. And we don't have to take a path. We need to choose the path. And as we go down these paths, if we don't like something, we can choose another path. But a lot of us, we don't grow up thinking we could do that life is a choice. And so I think for me, finding that freedom that the water gave me and this adventurous life gave me, and then the cerebral part of training my brain that, hey, I get to choose these different projects that I get to work on. I get to choose the path that I go down. It gives me a freedom that I wish I could share with everyone, you know. And the environment is so important. And when we hear about plastic pollution, carbon pollution, it can be very overwhelming. But there's hope spots in our world. And even though these are wicked problems that we face right now as people, because the ocean's going to be fine without us, it's going to recycle itself in a million years. People won't be okay without a healthy ocean. And so for me, it's like helping people make the connection to how important our environment is to the health of ourselves. Like, that is so important for all of us, you know. Like, you live up in Colorado. I see the beautiful picture of the mountains in the background from where you're at right now. You're surrounding yourself with this. All of us need to surround ourselves with our environment in ways, whether it's a photo, whether it's video, whether it's a feeling, how you said about the sunshine. We all need sunshine every day, right? I just read a book that said that if you wake up and you see the sunrise, you end up having a better life, right? Like, so, and I always
sure, why not?
I always laugh, you know, when we see the sunrise and we see the sunset, it's really Earth rotating around, like it's Earth's rotation, or, you know, it's not actually the sun rising, it's us rotating. I thank you for that question. I don't know if I answered it for you, but like, I feel that if there's a point in my life, how I said, those low lows, those high highs, like, if there is these points, these moments in time that I'm feeling low, I have to get in the water, whether it's a swimming pool, whether it's a lake, whether it's the ocean. I have to get into water to feel good again. And I think that is my superpower, is knowing that brings joy to my life, as well as connecting it to other people. Like, those two run hand in hand for me.
I love it. That's a beautiful way to wrap this up. I feel like we touched on less than 1% of what you have to share for us, Annie, and I think it's also valuable. I really enjoyed your enthusiasm, and there's so many nuggets in there. One of my favorite nuggets is, I grew up in inner city Chicago. It was really, really tough. I decided not to have debt in my life. I saved some money. I took a gap year. I found this thing. Because someone stole my money, it developed into this beautiful life because good came from the bad. And wow, your enthusiasm about all of it. What a testimony. I'm so glad that I got to visit with you today.
I'm so happy to be here. There's so many other things too that like I sold my car to buy my first underwater camera housing, like because I knew it was going to be my path. So I think that, taking calculated risks are also what guided me. And so for anybody listening, if there's something you want to go and do, let this be a testament to you. I believe in you. Sometimes we need one person to believe in us until we could believe in ourselves. And I'm just blessed that I've had one person believing in me pretty much throughout my life.
Nice.
And that I really believe that love, like we are all full of love. What happened to me is nature ignited, the ocean ignited this love within that I get to shine to the world. And so I give all my credit to finding nature and going on adventures. And I just look forward to, drop me a line, send me an email. My phone number is public. Send me a text or WhatsApp, however you want to reach out to me. But, if I need to be that one person in any listener's life, I'm there for you because I believe anything is possible. Just the word impossible, I'm possible. And that the words that we tell ourselves are so important in our lives. And so thank you so much for having me on.
Once again, the most recent documentary here is Malpelo, the Island of the Shark, Gardens of Malpelo. Thank you, Annie, for your time.
No, thank you. I love it. So I hope to talk with you, and I'll catch you later.
Okay, and everyone, hey, Annie showed it. I'm just going to say it. It makes such a difference. Get out there and have some fun.